Okay, so today, chat voted on Tyrande over Vala and Zagara. I don't know why. I think Tyrande is kind of subpar when it comes to a healer. She fits very specific compositions, makes it very tough for Tyrande to fit into a lot of comps. Um, Baseline, she has weaker heals. She's very much an enabler. Her trait lowers armor on targets, which means that they have to take away in other aspects, which is generally the healing throughput. She has a stun, a hard stun, which a lot of healers don't have, so there's another drawback. Sentinel is kind of iffy. Reasonably, this should be used for vision. What most people do with vision in the game is not a lot, so it kind of takes away the value. It does, to an extent, help with cooldown reduction because every time you do damage, you get cooldown reduction on your Q. And I want to go ahead and get this out of the way because this does fit into a lot of what you do. Tyrande is listed as a medium difficulty hero, but I think she's actually very hard. So every time you do damage to an enemy, you're going to get cooldowns. So that doesn't mean that you just have to hit heroes. It doesn't mean you just have to hit minions. You can get it from wherever. Your owl is not going to hit minions, but it can hit heroes, which means another 1.5 seconds. So you can always use it for damage in the middle of a fight if you don't have anything needed, just for extra cooldown reduction. This is very important because as a Tyrande, you have to land your abilities. Your W needs to hit, hopefully if in the middle of a fight. Your E needs to hit. Your auto attacks have to go through. So auto attacks versus something like a Johanna now become a little more difficult. If I open up with a Blessed Shield as a Johanna, I'm blinding my Tyrande. Like, you have 2 heals that you're going to get out there, and that's it. And so with that, the aspect of doing damage as Tyrande makes her a more difficult hero, which means that it's much more difficult to get cooldown reduction if you're not a good auto attacker. Just pressing Q is not good enough. Auto attacking like a maniac is pretty important. You can never stop auto attacking, else your hero does nothing. And you're reliant on a very long cooldown, 16-second cooldown. Yes, you have 2 charges, but once you've used the 2. So let's talk about ways to make up for that with her talents, because no matter how many times they've buffed Everlasting Light, and I mean they've buffed this a lot, it's still objectively bad, okay? Don't fall for this trap, and I want to explain why. Mark of Mending, if you go this and you're a solo healer, it's toxic, okay? It's not good. There's very few all auto attack compositions that are ever going to benefit off of this. If you have everything and you're playing selfishly as a Tyrande, you're already doing it wrong. If you get into some weird double healer comp, sure, go for it. But this is a trap, I believe, most of the time, pretty much all the time. And Mark of Mending is basically, it's a bad pick in every respect. You're hurting yourself, you're hurting your team. It's kind of like an Ana going trait stacking build. Nobody cares if you do a little bit of extra damage if you're the solo healer, because now we can't do anything. Your healer, first and foremost, is to keep your teammates alive. Elun's Chosen is what gives you that value. This is such a good talent. They've nerfed it, but it's still really strong. Now, the reason this is good is because despite having 2 charges of your Q, baseline, it's not bad healing. It's 255. This is, on the upper echelon in terms of heals, but it's less than an Uther heal, more than an Ana heal, but Ana has much shorter cooldowns. Elun's Chosen gives you the capabilities in a team fight to do multiple things. I now have multiple target healing. I can heal 3 people as opposed to 2 or 1 with my 2 charges. If somebody becomes a priority target, I can now help them out a lot. Think similar to White Mane, right? To where I'm going to do damage to heal up the person that's on there, and that's going to be my form of healing, except you also have a targetable heal. So this lasts for 8 seconds. Elun's Chosen should not be underestimated. This, again, goes to the category of Tyrande has to be very active in order for this to be good. If you get blinded a lot and you're not doing damage. Now, so you activate to make your basic attacks heal targeted ally for the damage dealt. We've seen nerfs on Tyrande's auto attack damage, which is why there's been such a huge step back. So Elun's Chosen is difficult to use because you have to activate it on one of your heroes, you can queue them. So now you have a form of burst healing. You have a form of sustain healing. There's a 22-second downtime. So this shouldn't be used super liberal. But if you're not getting the procs, and I've hit both of my Qs, and now I'm just trying to auto attack for cooldown reduction, this is now much more difficult to heal. And Elun's Chosen gives you that availability to heal a primary target, a secondary target. It allows you to keep healing on a tank while you heal your damage dealers. You can use this in so many different ways that it's a must pick. It is a must pick every single game. Everlasting Light, if I queue this target, then I queue that target, I'm out of healing for anybody until I get more cooldown reduction. That's still not good. And anytime you've ever seen a talent that's like heal one person, then heal the other, I think the only one that I've ever seen that viable on is Anduin, and that's just because it gives you cooldown reduction. This is not the same. Elun's Chosen, priority healing on a target that is in trouble. So getting that heal, getting 2 Qs on them, and Elun's Chosen can be the difference between life and death. Somebody that's taking damage beside me, but I also need to prioritize heals there. I can do damage, say my tank and my melee are taking damage, but I've got an annoying Genji back here. I can always just let them go up there, queue the front line, hit the Genji with my Hunter's Mark if it's available, Elun's Chosen there, and all of a sudden this person that's under duress is okay. And there's multiple different uses of Elun's Chosen, and you have to go and experiment with this. Too many people I see shy away from Elun's Chosen because it's another button they have to press, and it's another thing they have to think about. But if you're not picking this, then one, you shouldn't be playing this hero, because that means you're afraid to do damage to auto attack while also trying to manage different resources. Tyrande is a hard hero because you have to focus on healing your team, but you also have to do damage. Any healer like a Malfurion, where I can just press regrowth on a bunch of people, then press W on the team, that's a lot easier. Tyrande is a much different story because Elun's Chosen, priority targets. Who do I do it? And that's something you have to figure out yourself. Are they about to die? Are they at 50% health and getting pounded? Do I need to do this? And that can be difficult for a lot of people to recognize of when to use Elun's Chosen. It's similar to the age-old concept of, I don't want to Divine Shield a 10% target because then how do I heal them? It's okay to use this on a target that's 40 to 50% and being attacked, because then I can heal them back up to 100% instead of healing them from 10 to 50. And you're going to fall into those moments where you're going to find somebody low and you have to heal them. But Elun's Chosen does give you that capability to keep a single target alive, or to heal other targets, or to focus on multiple different aspects, which again is why I think people stay away from it, because it's a little bit harder to manage another button. But in reality, this is the higher skill cap talent, and it should be picked. If you don't pick it, and I promise you, if you're not picking this, pick a different healer. Go Everlasting Light. Do not go Mark of Mending. Level 4. Now, there's 2 really good talents here, I think, situationally. There's one good talent here that is needed most of the time. Tyrande's E is a stun. It's a pretty long cooldown when you look at it. It's a 13-second stun. This makes it a little difficult to justify picking this talent because, or excuse me, to use this at will, because now you're using a long cooldown reduction, and this talent pre-13 and mostly post-13, and we'll go over it when we get there, should not be used unless you have... And this is not normally a setup CC. This is a follow-up form of CC, because the cast time, the enemy team can see that it's coming, and you're landing a small circle raw. This isn't like landing a Malfurion route. Following up on tank CC is paramount to the success. If you remember the old days, or you weren't around, a Diablo charge into the wall, and then Tyrande is aiming that stun behind the Diablo, because the Diablo should be flipping that target back. That's where you land your stuns, Tyrande. Not in the initial charge, but on the flip back. That was one of the most terrifying combos before the great CC nerf of February 2016. That was an actual thing where a bunch of stuns had major reduction. Tyrande got hit pretty hard, and that combo started to fall off. Tyrande Muradin was a combo back in the day. So you should be looking to use your E to follow up CC. Now, one cool thing about the Lunar Blaze talent is that you get the increased range. The increased damage just means that you now have priority damage on a target. Setting up a kill is normally a culmination of multiple forms of CC that help out a lot. Having extra range means that you don't necessarily have to be directly beside that tank. It's a pretty normal range by all regards without this talent, but you get now more burst damage onto a priority target that you're following up on. And this is going to give you range. It gives you poke potential on another map like Towers of Doom. There's different ways you can poke with this as well. But you should be utilizing Lunar Blaze to follow up CC and not necessarily initiate. There are going to be moments where you can throw a raw E out there and swing for the fences. But if you miss, that means that you don't have this for another 13 seconds. And if something else comes through, now you can't follow up. So follow up CC with your Lunar Flare is really important to finish this quest. But also in general, this is not an opening CC. This is more of a follow-up CC. One of the best combos a long time ago was, or not even a long time ago, but a couple years ago, was a Garrosh Tyrande. Garrosh tosses somebody in. You see where that stun is. You follow up stun and you Hunter's Mark them. That's a pretty easy combo. There's a lot of easy things you can do with Tyrande and her Hunter's Mark. So creating a priority target, if there's initial CC and follow-up CC, and your follow-up CC does damage, and you can Hunter's Mark, that person that just got hit is going to be taking a lot of damage if my damage dealers did any sort of damage after that. So a lot of it is saving your Hunter's Mark for either one, empowering your Elun's Chosen so that you can get more healing throughput, because remember, it's more auto attack damage, more everything that you're going to do. And you want to create that priority target, or you want to save it for follow-up on your CC. This is a pretty long cooldown of 20 seconds, so reducing armor on a random tank standing in front of you, maybe not so much. Reducing armor on somebody that just took CC, now we're talking. So Lunar Blaze for that, and this gave me an opportunity to talk about your Lunar Flare a bit here. Lunar Blaze is really good for those reasons. Now, if you have a pretty hyper, auto attack team, True Shot Aura, I think, is a situational talent that's not terrible. I'm not a big fan of it. You do get extra passive basic attack damage, which again plays into your Elun's Chosen. But you can also activate this. It resets your Hunter's Mark, which means that this is more of it's time to fight right now, or we just started a fight and we need to kill somebody. And True Shot Aura gives you that to help finish a fight, to help do some serious damage. It helps your team around you. They get increased bonus, 25%, and you apply it to your allied heroes. So you get the bonus damage from this, so they get more damage, which means it's a priority target. Again, it does help empower your Elun's Chosen a little. 15% is not that much, but it does. Every little bit can help. Lunar Blaze is normally going to be better. True Shot Aura is situational on your team, and you better have 2 to 3 auto attackers on your team that can benefit from this. Also, it's not that great. And take it how you want it. It's a 45-second cooldown versus something you're going to get more reliably on a 13-second cooldown. But this is we need to fight now and fight fast. If you have a sustained damage team, maybe this can put them over the top. But if it's a true sustained damage team, it's not doing much. So make sure that this is the right moment. Don't force it, and focus on your Lunar Flare. Now, at level 7, there's 2 really good talents here, and unfortunately, they moved the Cleanse all the way to 16, but Moonlit Arrows and Kaldorei Resistance are the only 2 talents you should be looking at. You already have the deficiency in terms of cooldowns for your Q, and you can auto-attack, and you get the cooldown reduction on that. That's nice, but you can take it to another level. If I'm going against a Li Ming, a Kael'thas, which is very common at low levels, or some type of big damage dealer, Spell Armor is actually really good. Not only because it helps in terms of living through some of that damage, but because you can also stack it up to 20%. So if there's a Kael'thas on the other team, this becomes the primary choice. And it's pretty easy to see which one is which. Don't go Hunter's Mark. Don't even think about it. Kaldorei Resistance, good versus heavy mage teams that have burst damage that you know you're going against. Jaina, Kael'thas, Li Ming, potentially it means you've got to be more on the ball because her cooldowns are a little bit quicker and they come in from different angles. Else, Moonlit Arrows is a very good talent for a lot of sustain from Tyrande, so you can get a lot of healing throughput, and this can help you out a lot in that cooldown reduction department. Albeit you're doing damage and you're getting your auto attacks. So the basic attacks here, not just doing damage, but basic attacks are getting the extra cooldown reduction. Pretty no-brainer here in terms of which one you decide on, how you look at it. Now, at level 10, This is a pretty interesting. This was a topic in a Reddit post not too long ago, maybe a month or two ago, maybe 3 months ago. Um, Starfall versus Shadowstalk. Which is the better talent? Now, for all intents and purposes, we need to go back and look at the part of this. This is why I wanted to point it out. Every time you do damage to an enemy, you get cooldown reduction on your Q. So Starfall enables not just doing damage, but it also gives you the slow, of course, but it also gives you cooldown reduction on your healing. Now, Shadowstalk does have a place because you do get stealth and you do get some healing over time. It's not that great. I'm not a big fan of the healing. I wish they could buff this a little, but Starfall gives you more opportunities to heal. So if you are auto attacking in the middle of this fight and you're using Starfall, you can spam your Q relatively quickly and make up for this heal over time. There's very few times where I'm a big fan of Shadowstalk. If there's a lot of dot damage, if there's like maybe a Lunara on the other side, they don't have burst damage. But even then, Starfall still gives me a credible talent. Shadowstalk is a 90-second cooldown. This is a very long cooldown. I actually have no idea why it's 90 seconds. I really don't know why it's 90 seconds. This is a long cooldown for a heal over time. If this was 80 seconds, I'd still say it's semi-long, but I'd be okay with that. 70 seconds, I'd say Lunara might be borderline super meta at that point. 60 seconds, she'd be broken. There is something you can do with this. There's small tidbits. Because you give your team stealth, you can stop them from dying. I don't think that's the primary reason you should pick it, but there are multifaceted uses to it. But Starfall, for everything that you're trying to do in a team fight, which is where Tyrande excels, to getting cooldown reductions, I think Starfall will be better most of the time. If the enemy team walks out of there, then, it's kind of Monka, but overall, Starfall, I think, is your primary choice. Shadowstalk, if you're going against a lot of dot damage and you need some type of safety, I think that can help. Not a huge fan of it, but I'm not against it. Starfall, I think, is generally going to be better. Now, earlier you heard me mention don't set up CC. Don't try and set up your own E. Don't try and set up your own combo until post 13. And the reason that is Harsh Moonlight. Sentinel slows the first target hit by 40% and reduces their damage by 40% for 4 seconds. Now, clearly this can help work against melee assassins, Alarak, Kerrigan, Kira, if the moment is right. A lot of this can help to reduce damage. That's not its primary functionality. It's really the 40% slow. And again, I'm not a huge fan because this is a 15-second cooldown. What this does do is it now enables you to help if somebody needs peeling. It can help to set up a kill if somebody's trying to run from you. 40% slow is enough for your team to catch up. Not only that, but it also makes it easier to land your stun. A 40% slow on a target means that it's now much easier for me to land my Lunar Flare. That becomes a lot easier to do. So Harsh Moonlight allows you to set up your own combo, where before you're kind of waiting on tank CC to be able to do that. So Harsh Moonlight does give you a lot of different approaches to team fights, for peeling, for setting up kills, for ganking in particular. You can dismount somebody, obviously a little bit harder. You can dismount and then gank and set up and slow. There's a lot of things you can do with Harsh Moonlight. I know that there's an appeal. You didn't hear me talk about Ranger at level 4, and that's on purpose because I think it's a bad talent. It's a very bad talent, and you should never pick this. At 13, what if I get... No, don't. If you're not comfortable with that, I think Quickening Blessing is actually okay. You get 5% movement speed, which means it should make a move a little easier. And Light of Elune increases the target's movement speed by 20%, which can now help enable tanks. It can now help peeling. It can now help your team get away from danger if need be. So there is a lot of different uses to Quickening Blessing. I think this is okay. Ranger's Mark, because most of the time you're using your Hunter's Mark to set up a kill or follow up and really blow somebody up, it is a long cooldown. They kind of go hand in hand, your Lunar Flare and your Hunter's Mark. I think this can be okay. I don't want to write it off. I just know the playmaking potential of Harsh Moonlight is generally higher. The team potential is generally higher with Quickening Blessing, and Ranger's Mark is kind of an ambitious talent. I think it's a little too ambitious for pretty much the majority of the player base, which is why I think these other two talents are better. I think because the other talents aren't superb, they're not over the top great like some of our other talent tiers, that this kind of gets some consideration. So I don't mind this. I do think these are better for general purposes. This is a very ambitious talent, and it's sometimes hard to get value out of because when you fight as Tyrande, it's generally fighting fast. This can give you more poke potential on a tank to just dot them up a little bit with the Hunter's Mark, hit them a few times. But I'm still not a big fan of it entirely, but I wouldn't hate you if you did. But if you're on my team, I'm really hoping you're going to one of these two talents. Level 16, there's pretty much only one choice here. Before the movement of this used to be at level 7. Darnassian Archery was actually really good. This gives you a lot of team fight damage. Poking this up, it helps out with your Loons Chosen. There's many things that this does. So this still does have some consideration. But because Celestial Attunement removes, it's not a pre-cleanse, but it removes stuns, silences, and slows from a target, this is a soft cleanse to remove stuff. And because you have 2 charges of this is why it got moved from 7 to 16, because you had 2 charges of this. And basically you couldn't kill anybody post level 7. So those 7 to 16 fights, when we still had some type of competitive scene, were very hard to take against a Tyrande because she could just cleanse whatever CC is there. And everything about getting kills and setup is about getting CC, about getting those stuns. So Celestial Attunement, hands down 99.9% of the time, you have to pick this. If the enemy team has almost no CC, and I mean they better have next to nothing, Darnassian Archery is okay. But if they have any stuns, any silences, and any slow, one hero, I don't care if it's a Jaina alone, you better be picking Celestial Attunement. If you're picking these other talents, you're trolling. You're actually trolling. So Celestial Attunement, you have to pick. You are a healer. And if you are a healer and you have something that removes CC and you have 2 charges of it and sick cooldown reduction on that, and you're not using this, pick a different hero because you're trolling. Celestial Attunement all the way. Now, level 20, Ice Blade Arrows, really good for everything we've talked about so far because you get the cooldown reduction just by auto attacking. You get a lot of stuff going. Increases attack speed, helps out a lot. Basic attacks against enemy heroes reduce their damage dealt by 8% for 2 seconds, stacking up to 5 times, so it can make it good against melee assassins. But overall, just the attack speed means more cooldown reduction, which means more healing throughput. That's not to say that Shooting Star is a bad talent. This increases your basic attack range. So this is what makes this talent also really good. I think she has decent level 20 talents to complement her kit overall. So getting the basic attack range means that you can now auto attack safer and be a little easier. And if you want the increased range at 4, now you can play a pretty decent range Tyrande. She already has a good auto attack range. Now it's even better. So now with Shooting Star, you get the auto attack range. So both of these I think are good. I think either one is good. This Shooting Star is always safe. It's always safe, can always be picked. Ice Blade Arrows means that you're not as worried about the enemy team frontline. If there's an ETC up there, if there's a Garrosh, I'm probably going Shooting Star so that I can make sure I don't get stunned and flipped, I don't get slid upon, and I'm there to help remove those stuns and to interrupt Mosh Pit or do a lot of other things. If I'm going against maybe an Arthas or a Stitches, I might feel a little bit better about my positioning, albeit as long as I dodge hooks and things. But Shooting Star gives me that extra poke range that makes things safer. Ice Blade Arrows gives me attack speed, which means more cooldown reduction, which means more healing throughput. And both of them can be weighed, accordingly based on the enemy team and what your needs are. If you've made it to 20, different fights, different situations, and you got to play around those. So I think both of these are actually really good. The heroic upgrades I think are actually pretty bad. Celestial Wrath increased the slow of Starfall to 40%, which means you can, in theory, get more procs on this, and it applies Hunter's Mark to people that are inside the area of effect, and I think that's okay. I mean, if you're hard smashing a team and it's 20 to 18 and you're the 20 team, maybe you go for this, but you're going to probably get more general value out of these here. I have the Huntress, not a fan of at all. healing for 50% more, you probably already shouldn't be going this talent. So for all of those reasons, I love these other talents. I love Shooting Star. I love Ice Blade Arrows. And in the right situation, if I'm trying to end the game, Celestial Wrath does come up. Or if I'm versus a literally Death Ball composition, maybe I choose this as well. There is the added bonus of every 8th basic attack, you get a free Lunar Flare at the enemy target's position. So that does give you some added bonus. It's really about the range here. But overall, if you can go this build and you go Everlasting Light and you go Lunar Blaze and you go either of these talents and you go Shadowfall or Starfall and you're getting Harsh Moonlight and you're setting things up and you're going Celestial Attunement, all of a sudden Tyrande functions like a real hero, but she has a couple of cool things in her kit. She has armor reduction. She has follow-up CC in the form of a hard stun, which is very rare for a healer. So now you have 2 really cool things that you're bringing to a team that enables them to kill somebody, that enables them to blow people up. So for that reason, Tyrande now, it's another one of those heroes that you have enough in your base kit offensively that you don't need to go into more offensive talents because you need to fill the gap of what your deficiencies are. Your deficiencies very much are the fact that they took away from her healing kit because they had to put stuff in armor reduction into a hard stun. So because of that, you don't get the same functionality. That's not to say the other talents can't work or they don't have some type of value, because I know there's always somebody that wants to point those out. It's just that in terms of true general functionality, there's a general base guideline to follow to really round out these heroes. Anybody can one-trick something. Anybody can go down one narrow path and say, I'm going full Hunter's Mark build. That's great for yourself, but it's not always great for your team. Anything can work in Heroes of the Storm. So if you've tried all this other stuff, I implore you to please try some of these other talents, including to stop picking Everlasting Light and to start picking Elun's Chosen so you have a primary target for healing. Your talents here, there's a few options I think that you can feel comfortable with, but everything that you have utilized or you've seen throughout this build leads to a well-rounded hero that has some really good strengths when it comes to team fighting, but now has a lot of healing throughput, which is her #1 deficiency by far. And if you can't heal your team, it doesn't matter. So that's the hard part with Tyrande. Moving a lot, doing damage a lot, or all things. Remember, every time you damage an enemy, you're getting cooldown reduction. And even if you're in the middle of a team fight, throw your Al out there, hit a tank, get more cooldown reduction. Do whatever it takes to get cooldown reduction. Don't sacrifice yourself. Don't overextend for damage. Don't get into the poke battle as Tyrande. Your auto attacks, I think at level 1 are somewhere near 60. It's not pretty. So you have to play around that. You'll get your value through your talents. You'll find value for your team. Post level 7, you're going to feel a lot better as a Tyrande to get some type of spell armor or cooldown reduction. But in terms of her base kit, you should be maximizing that at its core and then filling out those gaps with the talents. And that's Tyrande.